I will call to order the Durant City Council meeting August the 8th. If you would, please stand and join me in invocation for our meeting. Our God, our Father in heaven, thank you, God, for blessing us the way that you do. Thank you for blessing the city of Durant, all of its staff and leadership. God, we pray that you would be with us and be present during this meeting to guide us and direct us. We pray, God, for your wisdom, for your courage. We pray for clarity, God, and open hearts and open minds. And help us, God, in the decisions that we make and the steps that we make in the future. And God, it's our prayer that everything we do will bring glory and honor to your name. I pray your blessing on each person that's here today and their families as well. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for Jesus, who is our Savior. In his name we pray. Amen. If you would, please join me in a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Now the clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Shear.
Here.
Councilmember Fuller.
Here.
Vice Mayor Simulescu.
Here.
Mayor Tucker.
Here. Next on the agenda is citizen comments, and I did not grab the sign-up sheet. Do we have any citizens signed up to make comments tonight?
Blank.
It's a blank page. Okay. We'll go on then to item in the order of business. Item number 1, the consent agenda. There are several items on the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to either approve or to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve all the consent items. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller.
Yes.
Councilmember Shear.
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu.
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Our next item is on the information items. We've got item number 3 on the agenda, the June financial reports and the July sales tax reports. Is Ann here? Ann, would you give that report for us, please?
Okay, the first one is the general fund, and this is for the June, but I have to mention that the June that we haven't paid out all our June invoice yet, we still continue to pay it. So this is just the, when I do the report, it's that date. So it will change a little bit, but most of our expenses are already recorded in here. And the general fund, the first page is the general fund. You can see that our revenue before transfer is about 125% compared to the budget.
Right.
And then if including the transfer and it's about 107%. And our expense that only for the operating part is 83%, but adding to the transfer out is about 83.27%. And for the capital improvement that how to say that? We have the revenue, and then the revenue, which means that it's including the reimbursement and everything, and then the expenditure is the one that we continue the project. And all this money that we're receiving, the remaining amount, we will roll over to the next year, and the same as the project expense. The remaining project expense is still continue, I'll roll over to the next, which means 23-24 budget. Is there any question about this capital improvement?
I think, Ann, it would be beneficial at some point to give us some visibility on what the rollover balances accumulate to, in addition to just the current year numbers. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
When I do the first budget amendment for the 23-24, that will be all the capital improvement that
Rolls
I will
over.
make a list.
Okay.
Yes. What
Okay.
kind of project we roll over and how much is it?
Good.
Yeah. And for the DCUA, you can tell that our revenue is about 90% compared to our budget, and that's not including the beginning fund balance. When I do the budget, the beginning fund balance is actually including into our expense size. So right now, you can see that we did not touch our beginning fund balance yet. So take out the beginning fund balance, our revenue is about 90% of compared to our budget. And if we including the fund balance, is about 84% for the revenue. And the expense side is the same. When we do the operating expense, it's about 78.11% of our expense. And if you including the transfer out, it's about 85.7%. Is there any question about the DCUA? And about our sales tax, we are pretty fortunate that this year our sales tax still increased. It's about 4% increase compared to the past 12 months.
Any questions for Ann? Thank you, Ann. Good report. Next, information items 3B is street milling and overlay update, and Philip, I'm assuming, is going to give us that update.
I just wanted to let y'all know they did mobilize. They're in town. They have started down on 7th Street. They're using the park there to park their equipment. They should have most of that done this week. Then they have to pull off, and they'll be back the next week, and they'll be finished in less than 90 days, he said. We're waiting to do Rodeo Road last because OG&E is supposed to be doing they're going to put lines down through there, and I don't want new trucks on that overlay, so they're going to wait to do that part last. So.
Can we make Rodeo Road off limits to 18-wheelers?
I would like to.
Make it last longer, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. But, any questions?
Why can't we?
I don't know why we couldn't. We'd probably have to do a resolution or something. That might be ask Tom that question.
It's conceivable. I mean, that was previously a truck route,
Right.
But we've got the bypass a few hundred yards to the north. So, I mean, conceivably, you could do something like that. I don't think you could completely make Rodeo Road truck free. I mean, there's a business on there that is trucking related, purportedly. So, I don't think you could completely make Rodeo Road truck free, and there's farms and ranches along that road that would necessitate semis, but it could, I mean, I guess you could make it local traffic only. You know, if they've got business down that road, they're not just passing through. That's difficult to enforce, but
We haven't had much luck getting it off the truck route. I mean, people keep using it for truck route.
I've been told that they've tried to get it off of Google's truck route and hadn't had much response back from Google.
the signage doesn't work very well. We might need pictures. We might need a big billboard right before the bridge to say, this is what's going to happen to you.
You want me to take a picture of the next one and blow it
Yeah.
up? I can do that.
Thank you, Philip.
You're welcome.
All right, next under administration, we'll begin to consider some resolutions. 4A is consider approval of a resolution supporting continued participation in the Main Street program. And Amber is here to share with us what she needs as far as that goes. If you have questions of Amber, I don't know, you may not.
I mean, I can just explain a little bit. For us to keep our state accreditation and our national accreditation, we do have to have a resolution stating that there is support from the city, because obviously it takes all of us together to kind of make this work, not just us as an organization alone.
How many years has Durant been in the Main Street program? Do you know?
It's
I don't.
been I don't.
Okay.
I want to think this year, like as of the Magnolia Festival, was our 25th year.
Okay.
Is that what I heard somebody say? It's been a long. We were one of the longest. It's been a long time.
Okay. Any questions? Concerns for Amber? All right. Thank you very much, Amber. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve 4A.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution to support the Main Street program. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item 4B is discussion, consideration, and possible action on a planned unit development and preliminary plat request for property near Linden Woods Drive and Thomas Circle. Philip brought help.
I'm kind of new at this, so yes, I did. The applicants approached staff regarding filing for a preliminary plat with an overlay of a PUD, a planned unit development for Linden Woods Townhomes. The applicant stated this area would have apartment structures that will also have a management office on site, and they will manage the property. Parking is stated to meet city ordinance requirements. The site plan does show 5 multifamily structures with on-site parking. The site plan further shows there will be 64 total units. Planning Commission Board recommendations: approval of the plat with the following contingencies: Linden Woods to become a public street with as long as it's fixed before we take it over. Thomas Way will go to be a private, because it's inside where the apartments are. It's pretty much just kind of like parking. And they will also have private water lines in there and have 1 meter. And that's the way the new ones will be, is private water lines, private sewer lines with master meters on them.
The only question I had was I was reading through, and I think it was may have been in the Planning Commission, some messages between staff and the city engineer. And the city engineer, and he's here, and he probably have to answer this question for it, Brandon. The question was, as long as the hydrology and hydraulic reports are completed and are basically adequate, I'm paraphrasing now, was that ever done? Because I never saw in the documents that we received, I never saw any confirmation that was done and that it was adequate.
We haven't got that yet, but we also haven't got final engineering drawings yet at this phase. But there is some of that does flood, so we wanted to make sure that was addressed prior to final plat approval.
Absolutely. So without the final engineering, without the hydrology work, it seems preliminary to me, perhaps, to be considering this for approval at this point, unless you guys can educate me on that further.
It does say at the Planning Commission, that was one of the contingencies, that the drainage be fixed before we approved it.
I guess before you approve the final plat.
Final plat, yes.
So this should be a preliminary approval then, not a final approval?
Or with contingency, I guess.
Right, it's preliminary.
Okay. Okay then. And Linden Woods has an existing property here and has had for years.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Yes,
assuming
sir.
that they operate it well and that they're
Yes.
good. They're good operators. We don't have any challenges with them as far as from the city's perspective at all.
No,
and we're
sir.
happy that they're here.
Yes.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Philip or even for Brandon, since I involved him in this?
Mr. Mayor, what I would recommend is that any motion, if there is going to be a motion to approve, that it be contingent upon the recommendations of the Planning Commission, those contingencies recommended by the Planning Commission, and probably need to identify those. I think Philip identified all of them when the drainage in the area of Matthew and Thomas Way was included, but any motion would need to include the contingencies recommended by the Planning Commission in that approval. It doesn't say anything about the easement. Was that that was along Lindenwood? Is that right? No.
Come to the mic so everybody can hear me. Yes, so one of the contingencies was that we had an easement that covered the existing utilities. So there was a water line running down Lindenwood, so we need to make sure that's covered. I think that was the only one that was missing out of the list.
Right there.
Okay, any more questions or comments or concerns on this request? Do I hear a motion for this request tonight?
Motion to approve 4B based on contingencies that are discussed from the Planning Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before the clerk calls the vote, I want to confirm that the contingencies are that the road is repaired, that the drainage or hydrology work is complete, and there's an easement that covers the utilities near or within the street.
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. There's also a couple more that Thomas Circle becomes a private road, that Lindenwood actually becomes a public road,
Right.
And then the master meters. But
The master meters are on water and sewer.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
yes, and a portion of Thomas Way becomes private as well.
And a portion of Thomas Way is private.
Yes, and that I think and probably the easement along Linden Woods to provide for utilities, but that would probably be worked into a final plat anyway, but that's one of the contingencies.
So you're still good with that as a motion and a second? Okay, we're all on the same page. Okay, now, clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Okay, item 4C is discussion, consideration, and possible action on a final plat, request for property near North First Avenue and Gerlach Drive.
Yes, sir, they are wanting to plat this and make two separate lots. One of the lots does have a building on it, the other one will be vacant. Notifications have been sent out to property owners around the time of this report, and the Planning Commission recommended approval of the contingency. There's an easement to be removed prior, but it was approved by Planning Commission.
And the zoning doesn't change, they're just splitting the
No,
lots.
just
into-
splitting the
that's all-
lots,
That's
yeah.
all it is, simply that.
Yes.
Okay? Any comments or questions? For Philip? I don't know, the property owners here, they may have something to say to add to this?
Yes, they're here.
Unless you guys have any questions.
Nothing to add, seems pretty straightforward.
It's a pretty straightforward thing.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve 4C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 4C. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Okay, item number 4D is discussion, consideration, and possible action on a sketch plat request for property located near Peppernut Lane and Redbud Lane.
Yes, sir. Tom may have to help me out a little bit on this one. This parcel is part of other parcels of land in that area that was sold without going through the platting process. Another owner came to the city looking for possibly building a house on their property and discovered that the land in this area was not platted correctly. So they couldn't obtain a building permit.
And to be perfectly clear, that's not strictly legal
Right.
to sell land that way.
That's not
Okay.
plotted, yes. This has been ongoing for a year or so. It was denied by planning commission. Tom could probably give you a little more. It's, what they're afraid of doing is making orphan lots in this, these parcels by platting this one.
So as a general rule, a sketch plat is sort of an informal method of getting an issue before the planning commission and the council say, hey, what you think? It's not really a formal approval of anything, even if the sketch plat was approved. It's just a sort of a nod toward the applicant that, hey, we'll seriously consider this if you bring it back to us in a preliminary plat. It's a way to initiate the discussion. What happened here, this Peppernut runs up the middle of the map there. On the east side of Peppernut, at one time that was generally under all common ownership, even though there's several parcels indicated it was generally under common ownership. The parcel with the words on it and the parcel, the subject parcel, which is just north, and then the little parcel above that to the north, that was all one parcel at one time, and then this square that's the subject property was sort of carved out and sold to the applicant, Mr. Goad. And that violates section 155.006 of the municipal code, which says that the plating requirements apply to a division of or addition of land into 2 or more tracts, lots, sites, or parcels, any part of which, when subdivided, shall contain less than 10 acres in area. So if you've got a parcel in the city and you want to sell off parts of it, you got to have it platted, even if it hasn't been platted before. And the reason for that is there are platting requirements. The goal is to develop the city in an orderly fashion, and if you just parcel off little pieces here and there, you may end up with parcels that don't abut a public street. And then unless that parcel owner is able to obtain easements to the public street, they still can't build on it because they don't meet the frontage requirements. They can't turn a fire truck around. They don't have access to public safety because they don't abut the public street. And then you get an orphan lot back there that suddenly isn't worth anything. It's not worth somebody keeping it up. It's not going to get mowed. It's not going to get maintained. And that may or may not happen with one of these, but it could somewhere. And so that's the reasoning behind the requirement to plat, because it sets forth an orderly process and makes sure all of the lots adjoin a public street. Now, on its own, the subject property appears to meet what you would hope for. It abuts a public street. But it wasn't carved off in a plat. It was just parceled off. So the applicant here has a good point. Hey, I've got a parcel that would otherwise meet the requirements. But when he applied for a building permit, or if he were to apply, it would be denied. And the theory is, or the reasoning is, we don't want to reward large parcel owners that just sell off pieces without platting. And so this forces the potential buyers to go back to the large parcel owner and say, wait a minute, I can't do anything with this property because it wasn't platted properly. And so that's kind of the issue, is the large parcel owner didn't plat it before he piecemealed it off. And understandably, the purchaser is upset because he can't do what he wants to do with that parcel because it wasn't properly platted before he purchased it. So, but
Has this property just recently changed ownership?
It's.
Been within the last couple of years.
18 months.
Is it 18 months?
The applicant's here.
February of 21.
February 21.
Okay. So it was in the city limits at the time.
Yes, sir.
22
Of 22.
on the deed, right? Yeah. 22 on the deed.
Yes.
Okay.
February 22, so it's just been a year and a half,
Yeah.
And
right?
yeah, it
That's
was
right.
in city
Okay.
limits.
So, as I understand it, the action was requested by the planning commission to have, the owner have the ability to talk with us.
Yes, sir.
So-
He's here.
So, good evening. On the microphone. Tom and I spoke after the meeting last week, and he agreed that we could do this in September, but I guess it didn't make it to the clerk to take it off the agenda for this month. So I respectfully request that we postpone this until September. I've got a lot of research and notes that I don't have. I was watching this at home and saw that I was on the agenda, and I raced down here, so.
Well, that's one way to find out.
Yeah. So, I don't know, Tom, if you remember that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's just fine if we take no action and leave that on.
I
if
just
that's
don't
the
want to miss
pleasure
the
of council.
opportunity to speak
Absolutely.
before the council, so I appreciate it.
No argument. Any concern with revisiting this in September?
No, it's fine.
Okay, I'll move, we take no action then, thank you, Scott.
Okay, if we
Move
can
we
just-
take no action then on 4D.
Drew
Thank you,
wants to talk.
Mr. Mayor. May I make a
Mr.
comment
Yes,
real quick?
Please.
The commission has a request from the council in the sense that we need some guidance in this area. This is a case that we're going to have more like these coming up. And so whatever we set here is likely going to set some sort of precedence. So this is something that we're looking for some feedback and some guidance on how we want to handle these. I think both the petitioner here and Tom both have good arguments. I think what the commission has decided at this point is, though, although we have a great deal of empathy for the applicant, it just wasn't in the best interest of the city to handle these things. I think the issue, as Tom has alluded before, is the state process of platting things like this is somewhat broken, in the sense that when deeds like this are filed, there's no really good place for them to be caught and addressed. So it's not necessarily the city's fault that happened. So does the city take it on and grant those permissions, or do they have some sort of stopping point so that those things can be caught and corrected in the future? So, Tom, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we do need some way of catching and making things correct. So we're looking for you guys for some guidance on that.
Okay.
Thanks.
I have a question. How do we correct this, or how will the property owner or the seller correct it this time?
And we could talk about that next time, but as a general rule, it's difficult because there's no procedure either in statute or in ordinance, or that's probably even enforceable by the city, whereby city staff can view these things before somebody comes in for a building permit. So in this case, Mr. Goad takes title to the property, and he has good title. I mean, but from the time that the seller gives a deed to Mr. Goad, the city has no notice. There's not a provision whereby a deed, property that passes from one owner to the next within the city limits ever comes in front of the eyes of the city staff. And so it goes to the county clerk, and until somebody comes in and either wants to rezone it, wants to get a building permit, city staff never lays eyes on a property transaction before it's filed with the county clerk, and really not even until then, and not even until somebody wants a permit or to rezone it.
So can the seller not replat at all? Does he have to take ownership back before he can replat it?
Well, that's sort of between the buyer and the seller, but there's a provision in our code that requires property owners that are parceling lots off in less than 10-acre tracts to plat them. So the city's recourse is to not issue building permits on improperly platted or unplatted lots. And that's not meant to be punitive to the buyer, it's just the first time the city actually sees the transaction. So unless we drive around and monitor realty websites, and some of these may take place without ever hitting the internet. Somebody may just do a private transaction, but the city never sees that until such time as the then owner comes in to do something with it.
It becomes an issue between the seller and the buyer to try to correct it.
Right.
Literally. Okay. Any other comments, questions? The owner? Okay.
Okay, February. I came in front of all of them, the whole council, Danielle, another name. She told me what to do, so I did it. Here's a plat right here that's not final, it's a sketch plat, that she wouldn't accept it, so I had to go back and have Paige modify it to the 35 feet, she said, 35 feet to Peppernut. And that's done on this plat.
Paige, the surveyor?
Surveyor. So I sent this to Danielle, and then she sent it back. I guess she sent it to Tom, and Tom said, no, that won't work. That's what she told me to do. I spent $8,000 on this. So it's getting a little bit out of hand to me. I know there's rules and regulations, but the 35 foot would fix that road issue. To give them access to Peppernut.
Mayor and council, I think what Mr. Attaway may be speaking about is some of those lots that don't adjoin Peppernut. In a properly done plat, every lot has to have a minimum frontage along a public street. And it's just, the ones that you see to the west do not. So
Yeah, there are no streets back
there's
there.
got to be
Private road that goes up through there.
and I don't dispute that. There is a private road or a trail or whatever you call it, but if it's not a public road, it doesn't meet the requirements of a plat. And so we probably, if we're either gonna need to talk about this tonight or push it off to next month, but I don't dispute that there was some efforts to make a plat, but that plat was never completed.
So can planning and zoning and Mr. Attaway work on steps to get it to a level where it would be complete? Would that be doable?
Certainly willing to make the effort, but maybe staff's place to do so.
Yeah, I don't know at what point in the process it is, but it would certainly be with staff until it gets to planning and zoning, but there would just need to be a compliant proposed plat submitted. And to my knowledge, that's not been done yet.
I know this has been sent to Danielle. That's all I do know.
Okay, we look forward to revisiting this in September, and hopefully we can make some progress toward it being.
Yeah, I think they need to get together,
Right.
because it's a he said, she said kind of thing, and I think that's kind of makes it unfair for us to make a reasonable call on this.
Right.
So I agree.
Okay, next, item 4E, back to Philip. Discussion, consideration, and possible action on a replat request for property located near Maxey Drive and Wilson Street.
Yes, basically what they want to do is take these two and move the lot lines, so one of these lots will have floodplain on it and the other one will not, and they can build a single family home on it. We haven't had any property owners respond at this time. Planning Commission recommend approval, and that's staff recommendation as well.
Okay. Also relatively straightforward.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or concerns, council? Well, then I will make the motion that we approve item 4E for the replat request for property near Maxey Drive and Wilson Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Finally, under administrative, item
Yeah,
4F
we'll
is
take that.
discussion,
I got
consideration, and
that.
possible action on accepting
Hey,
a
Martin.
drainage infrastructure on Mockingbird Lane into the City of Durant stormwater system.
This is the drainage up on Mockingbird that Derek Brewer and one of the people that live there implemented. We went, inspected it as they were putting it in. It was done exactly the way the plans that was presented to y'all were done.
Has it performed? Have we had an opportunity to see if it's gonna perform?
Hadn't rained yet.
Okay, what I'm afraid of. Okay, any questions or concerns, comments for Mr. Hightower? Any of the parties involved here have anything to say on this one?
I don't
Think
think
so?
they're not here.
Okay.
No, no.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve 4F.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 4F. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes. Item 5 is new business. Do we
Thank
have
you.
any new business? Needs to come before the council tonight. Hearing none, I'll consider a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Miller,
Yes.
Councilmember Shear,
Yes.
Councilmember Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Simulescu,
Yes.
Mayor Tucker.
Yes, the city council meeting is adjourned. At this time, I will call to order a meeting of the Durant City Utilities Authority. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
Trustee Shear,
Here.
Trustee Fuller,
Here.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Here.
Chairman Tucker.
Here. Item 1 of the consent agenda items. I hope you've had a chance to read the minutes of the 2 prior regular meeting and a special meeting. Do we have any items that need to be removed from consent agenda? Do I hear a motion to approve the consent items?
Motion to approve consent items.
Second.
A motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. Item 2, there were no items removed. Item 3, there are no information items. Item 4, administration. Item 4A, discussion, consideration, and possible action on change order number 1 from Howard Construction in the amount of $17,232 for purchasing and installing a turbidity meter. Mr.
Yes, sir. I'm back. When we started our plan upgrade, the turbidity meters were part of the upgrade because ours were obsolete. One was missed. They ordered 9, we needed 10. This is for filter effluent turbidity. It's a DEQ requirement, and we'll need to purchase it and have it installed to be in compliance with DEQ.
Any comments or questions for Philip? Consider a motion then.
I make the motion, we approve 4A and change order number 1 from Howard Construction for the amount of $17,232.
I'll second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. Item 4B is discussion and consideration of possible action on accepting change order number 2 from Howard Construction for the amount of $20,470.
Yes, this change order is, we replaced an 18-inch effluent line on our old plant. And basically, I think it was, they had to have help doing it. They bid an outside contractor, so they wanting us to pay half of it. That's pretty much the consistency, right? Yeah.
So was that addressed in the contract or not addressed in the contract?
So the 18-inch line, they hit a bunch of bad material in there and had someone come in, remove it, take it out, and put different material in. It was partially contaminated, and they replaced it. So that's the majority of the cost. And whether Howard did it directly or a subcontractor did it, it was just a matter that they had to take unusable material out and get good material back in there. So that was the gist of the.
So that wasn't anticipated and probably could not have been anticipated, in other words.
No, not unless we had got soil samples right adjacent to the line. There had been no way to know that.
Okay.
And it was like 18 foot deep, so.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
I make a motion we approve 4B for change order number 2 from Howard Construction for the amount of $20,470.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. Okay, item 4C is consider award of bid for construction of a 3-foot thick clay soil liner for the City of Durant C&D landfill. We have a handout for that, right?
Yes, sir. That's the bid tabulations.
Tabulation.
The bids were open today. We have one that's slightly higher than one of the others that we recommend. We use Cole Craig. Talking with staff, we've used Cole in abatements and always done the city a real good job. He does the surveying as well, so it's kind of all in one package. The difference between him and the lowest bidder was $3,321.
And that's Craig Surveying from Bochita?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for Philip? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion that we award the bid to
Craig Survey?
Craig Surveying LLC, Bochita, Oklahoma, for the amount of $138,200.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. Item
Thank y'all.
number 4C2 is approval of a contract with this person for the construction of a 3-foot thick clay soil liner at the Durant C&D landfill, contingent upon legal review and approval by the city attorney. Do we have a specimen contract, or will we?
No, we don't. Mr. Mayor, I'm not comfortable approving a contract without something for the council to look at. My request would be that we wait till the next special or regular meeting to approve the actual contract.
Recommend no action then for tonight's meeting, pending the development of a contract that's agreeable to both sides that we can approve. Any comments or concerns or questions?
Can we fast track this? Is he ready to move
Yes, sir.
today?
Yes, sir. We have a pre-construction meeting on Thursday, and he was gonna start just as soon as we had.
We're gonna have
did
to
that.
call a special then to
Yeah,
address
we
that.
can. We can get a contract together, but we need one in front of the council to vote on.
I agree with that. And I think going forward, it's probably a better practice if we bring it here, and to approve a contract, it's good to have the contract.
Yep.
Yeah, I would have if the
Right.
bidding hadn't been done today, so.
Right, I get it. So we'll take no action on that tonight, and we'll consider that a special meeting as soon as possible.
Okay.
Okay, so that ends.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Philip. That ends the items under administration. Number 4, number 5, new business. Do I hear any new business for the Utilities Authority tonight? Hearing none, I'll consider a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes, and the Utilities Authority meeting is adjourned. At this time, I'll call to order a meeting of the Durant Airport Authority, and the clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
Trustee Shear,
Here.
Trustee Fuller,
Here.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Here.
Chairman Tucker.
Here. Item 1 is consent items. The only item in this is approval of regular meeting minutes from July the 11th. Do I hear a motion to either remove this for consideration or approve the consent items?
Motion to approve 1A.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Shear,
Yes.
Trustee Fuller,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu,
Yes.
Chairman Tucker.
Yes. Item 2, there were no items removed from consent. Item 3, there are no information items. Item 4A is discussion, consideration, and possible action on a lease addendum between the City of Durant and W. Brown Enterprises for a new hangar door.
Good evening,
Good evening.
everyone. Thank y'all. So this was something that was actually done under a prior administration out at the airport. We had a tenant out there that had purchased a new aircraft. Well, their hangar that they were in, the door was too low. So an agreement was reached that they would pay out of their pocket to have a new hangar door put in place that would actually lift up to allow for the proper height for this aircraft to go into their hangar. Part of this was that there would be a reduction of $200 on their monthly rate for the hangar for the term of approximately 17 years on this. Now, this in no way leads on to any future increases on the hangar rent. So if they currently pay $440 a month on this hangar. So with the $200 reduction, that would be $240.
It's just a $200 credit towards whatever the rent payment is.
That's correct. Yes, sir. And with this addendum, the hangar door would actually then become basically property of the city. It would remain on the hangar. It would not, if the tenant were to vacate the property, the hangar door wouldn't go with them. It would stay there, which in turn gives us a valuable asset out there at the airport, because this is basically a power lift hydraulic door. So it's very low maintenance on these doors, very safe from the door possibly collapsing or anything like that. Again, it gives us a valuable asset out there, and it also gives us the ability to store larger aircraft in this hangar than what we couldn't store in the other 3 hangars that have the current hangar door on them. We can actually fit up to a Citation Jet 1, which is a smaller version of the Citation Jets, but with those jets going in there, it also allows for a little bit more on the monthly rate that we'd be able to lease out that hangar for as well. So it's definitely a viable asset for the airport to have on this. What we're looking for is, the approval of this so we can actually have this in accordance with their current lease agreement.
How much did it cost to have the door done?
Almost $40,000 for the door. So
That's what he's asking for.
correct, yes, sir. So with the $200 deduction on their monthly rate at 17 years, that equates out to almost what they paid for on the door.
A little bit more.
Questions, concerns?
So he hasn't received a rate deduction yet?
That is correct. We were going, so part of it was it was gonna go on with the new leases once we started signing those in July.
Does his current lease go 17 years? Is that what it is?
So as of right now, the leases are actually re-signed basically on an annual basis out at the airport. We're looking to go to basically an automatically renewing lease, but that would be starting this year for the next 17 years. It would be the $200 reduction.
So if he stopped leasing from the airport authority, we would not owe the aircraft owner for the difference. He would just walk away from that.
That is correct, yes, sir. That is part of this agreement, is it becomes our property once, and now the tenant though would maintain, maintenance on it should anything happen during the term of the lease and stuff like that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Can the tenant sublease his hangar to another aircraft owner?
Yes, sir. So everything under the current lease agreements we have for the airport would still continue. This would just be an addendum for that. But yes, under the current lease agreements that tenants sign, they can sublease, but it is with written approval from the airport director.
Okay.
Is this common, do type of thing like this, where you do like the tenant does an improvement and then you do sort of reduce and lease or rate, or is that kind of a newer thing?
No, this is a very common occurrence across the country at airports. And a lot of times it's only for high value dollar upgrades. So if somebody goes in and puts in, $500, $600 worth of lights, they don't really get a reduction on the rate.
Other questions, comments, concerns?
I'll make the motion that we approve 4A with the lease addendum between City of Durant and W. Brown Enterprises for a new hangar door.
I'll second. Clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Shear?
Yes.
Trustee Fuller?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu?
Yes.
Chairman Tucker?
Yes. Item 4B is discussion, consideration, and possible action on a contract with Vertower for 1 year in the amount of $6,000.
So what this is basically we're re-entering into another contract with Vertower. This is the company we're using for our airport operations tracking program out at the airport. This helps us to be able to identify what runway gets used the most, what taxiway stub, portion of the ramp gets used the most, and this also helps us to ensure that our pavement management program is being considered properly when we're looking at renovations or mill and overlays or possible expansions, items like that. This also helps us to, again, track the operations at the airport.
So is this new, or have we had this for a while?
Yes, sir. We actually started about April of 2022 with the tracking program.
Have you been happy with their information, results, anything?
Yes, sir. It's definitely been beneficial for us. We can track aircraft coming in, so if we have any VIPs or anything like that, we can track them so we know when they're getting close and be able to be on standby for them when they land. It's definitely helped with us planning for the future growth of the airport because we're able to identify needed areas and of infrastructure upgrades.
Any more comments or questions? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion that we
Second.
approve 4B with a contract with Vertire for 1 year in the amount of $6,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Shear?
Yes.
Trustee Fuller?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu?
Yes.
Chairman Tucker?
Yes. Item 4C is discussion, consideration, and possible action on approving a hangar lease agreement for air evac in a new hangar building.
So with this, this has actually been a fairly long process. We've been working on with Air Evac to get them a hangar out at the airport. Initially, we were going to do a ground lease through DIA,
Right.
but we ended up revamping all that to where now they'll just be leasing the hangar from the airport or the airport authority. So this is just starting to get the contract that they'll be utilizing once the hangar gets put in place to go into 24-hour operations. This will be a helipad hangar with living quarters and items like that the Air Evac will need.
Any questions or comments?
And the city will be building the hangar and then leasing it to Air-Evac?
As of right now, yeah, we're still working the financials through with the Durant Industrial Authority to where they will be looking at loaning the funds for the hangar to the Durant Airport Authority, and then we'll use those funds to build the hangar, and then at that point in time, Air Evac will make the payments to Durant Airport Authority, which will make the payment over to Durant Industrial Authority. Unless I misunderstood that, Tom.
No, I think that's accurate. There was some discussion early on. I think that the industrial authority would be the builder, owner of the hangar, and then would lease to Air-Evac. And some of the discussion centered around, well, what if Air-Evac leaves? Who's in the best position to lease this hangar to another tenant?
Right.
And I think the consensus was it's the airport authority. They have the connections with the aviation tenants more so than the industrial authority. So to the extent the industrial authority will be involved, it could be as a lender. They've got funds that they can use to either build or loan to the airport authority to construct the hangar.
So this structure made more sense. This financial structure made more sense.
I think that was the consensus.
Right.
It was also one of the clear ways to go with in regards to the FAA as well, to make
Right.
it clear cut for the airport. So.
Well, I have a question, since I don't know so much about this. How does it normally work if somebody wants to come in and build or use your facilities or whatever? Do you guys normally, does the city, the airport authority, build the hangar, or do the other people come in to do it, or is it kind of a mix?
If it's a private individual coming in to, say, build a set of T hangars or something like that, normally it's the individual that would handle all that. They would just do a ground lease from the airport. And our ground leases right now are about 40-year ground leases. So they have 20 years initial and then 2 10-year renewal options on top of that. At the end of that 40 years, it then reverts over to complete control of the airport. So that's how that works. Now, if it's a company, kind of like what's going on with Air Evac, there are ways they can go about getting a little extra funding to help build those items. DIA has that ability, depending on how many employees they bring in, items like that, from my understanding of it, that can give them the extra funding to help build something like this. Now, with this being done from DIA to the airport authority, per the contract, they'll be paying on it for 15 years. At the end of 15 years, it basically reverts over to control of the airport. So then that becomes a asset that the airport can then turn around and lease out to another company, or keep Air Evac in there should they so choose.
So after 15 years, it'll be paid off? Is that?
From my understanding, yes, ma'am.
Is this contingent on DIA financing any of this?
I mean, the terms of this lease aren't necessarily contingent. Conceivably, the airport authority could get any financing source that wanted to, but I think the intent and the discussion is centered around DIA doing the financing, and they can justify that because there is an employment component to this, that there will be some additional employees when AirVac has 24-hour presence and conceivably additional aircraft. And then there was a public purpose component in keeping AirVac here. I think this was one of the, I won't say demands, but certainly a condition that AirVac had to remain here rather than go somewhere else that had facilities for them. So from a response rate for our citizens and those in the area, it made sense to the DIA to keep them here. So for those purposes, it would qualify for DIA funding.
So that would need council approval down the road?
Yes, that would be something
Right.
that if DIA opted to provide that financing, it would come back in front, it would go in front, be approved by DIA and then come in front of this body as well.
Because usually previously, like when we did the other DIA thing with the Granite folks, right? They kind of had all that in place before. It seems like we're going reverse this time.
It does. There's certainly an argument to be made that this is the cart before the horse. I think this is based on a perception of commitment by the city and by the airport authority to AirVac, because we know under any circumstances it's going to be a year, 18 months before this facility is ready to be occupied. And to the extent that there's a commitment shown by the airport authority to AirVac to pursue this, my understanding is AirVac is committed to staying here.
I mean, our site right now, they are only operating on a 12-hour basis for our site right now, but they're actually beating out almost every other 24-hour operation in the state, just with their location here. So it's definitely beneficial to AirVac, but it's also beneficial to us here in Durant as well.
And I agree that it's very beneficial for our citizens, not just Durant, but Bryan County, the local area, for them to be here.
Yep.
And they are looking at basing additional aircraft.
I believe down the road that is possibly a second helicopter down the road. Yes, sir.
I think this is beneficial, as we all can agree. I'm just worried about the financial side of it, that in 18 months when we build it, if costs go up, that $5,000, I want to make sure that still covers our costs. And so I don't know if that's something we vote contingent on, that as long as building materials don't drastically increase by the time they get around to this, that we're still covering ourselves.
Yes, ma'am. Now I believe the amount that was looking at is roughly about $1 million, if I remember correctly. I think some of the, we've been looking at some of the costs, and it could end up being significantly lower than the million. This is based on that right there.
Yeah.
So.
I'm assuming you guys haven't had bids on how much it would actually cost to build it yet, have you?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
but
well, that's why I say it's a little bit nerve-wracking to set a price when you don't even have a bid, let alone know what that bid looks like a year from now.
Yes, ma'am.
So.
No, I do understand. Yeah, no. Once the financial side of it's approved, AirVac's ready to move. We can get the designing and everything else done. At that point, we'll get all the construction costs back and everything else, and we'll be able to move forward.
So we can approve this contingent on getting a bid that meets this financial need. Yeah.
That's certainly conceivable, and that's a good point, because I think the intent is that this lease essentially cover the cost, but this is still going to be an asset that's valuable even at the end of this leasing period. So it will continue to generate revenue. So possibly even if this initial 15-year lease didn't cover the construction cost or the operational cost, it would continue to generate revenue, whether it was by AirVac or some other tenant after that.
I just want to be in the
that's certain.
ballpark. I don't want it to get blown out of the water. But yeah.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Do we hear a motion?
Motion to approve. Motion to approve 4C.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve hangar lease agreement for Back and a new hangar building. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Shear?
Yes.
Trustee Fuller?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu?
Yes.
Chairman Tucker?
Yes. Item 5 is new business. Is there any new business to come before the Airport Authority tonight? Hearing none, consider a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. The clerk will call the roll.
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Shear?
Yes.
Trustee Fuller?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simulescu?
Yes.
Chairman Tucker?
Yes, we stand adjourned, and thank you all very much.